everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you all have been doing well. This is my third time attempting to sit down and record this case. So if you are seeing this video, it means I was finally able to get through an entire video recording session without going into a coughing fit. I had that darn virus about a month ago and I feel fine now, but that post-COVID cough and shortness of breath is no joke. It stayed lingering, so needless to say, it's been very difficult to talk for long periods of time on camera. But we're going to give it a go today and talk about a case that, like many others I've covered, has not received a ton of attention. This one has been requested by several of you. It is the 2009 disappearance of Hassani Campbell from Oakland, California. And his case did receive exposure at the beginning. Nancy Grace did a segment on it. It was on some national news channels. But as the years have passed, it seems interest has dwindled. People have forgotten, and police don't seem to be investigating it any longer. Hopefully, we can bring some attention to it today. Hassani Jamil Campbell was born on September 24, 2003, to parents Shamika Campbell and Ronald Hughes. And he did not have the easiest start in life as he was born with cerebral palsy. Now, most of you probably know what cerebral palsy is, but for those that don't, it is a neurological condition caused by abnormal brain development or brain damage that occurs while a fetus is developing or during birth. The exact cause of cerebral palsy can't always be determined. It can happen if the mother has infections or medical conditions. It can be caused by lack of blood flow to the child's brain in utero, genetic problems. Sometimes it is caused by damage to the baby's head during delivery. It is pretty common, more so in boys than girls. Some of the issues a child with CP may have are movement and walking disabilities, difficulties with speech, and cognitive impairments. Now, I'm not sure of all the issues CP caused for little Hassani. He did have cognitive delays and his motor skills were somewhat affected, but he was able to speak. He did have a slight lisp, and he wore orthopedic support braces on his ankles that helped him to walk and helped to shape his feet. I think they were worn to help create an arch in his foot. So he could walk with or without the support braces, but he couldn't run, jump, or skip around like other children. He could not move super fast, and I want you to remember that because that will be an important point later on. Hassani's biological mother, Shamika Campbell, suffered from numerous health problems, and she also had issues with substance abuse. His biological father also had some issues from what I understand, though I don't know what those issues were. Not much is publicly known about Hassani's life before December of 2008, but around that time, the California State Division of Children and Family Services decided that 5-year-old Hassani and his 1-year-old sister Aaliyah would be better off not living with their mother and being in her care. From what I could gather, it seems like DCF approached Hassani's maternal aunt, Jennifer Campbell, and her fiance, Louis Ross, to see if they would be willing to take Hassani and Aaliyah, and they said they would, so the children went to live with the couple. It seemed that Jennifer and Louis were taking good care of the children. DCF checked in on them and noted that Jennifer and Louis made sure to take care of all of Hassani's medical needs. They got him to his doctor's appointments regularly and did whatever needed to be done for his well-being concerning his cerebral palsy. DCF has also said that they had no issues or worries with Jennifer and Louis caring for the little boy or his sister. Everything checked out and seemed to be going fine. Hassani was small for his age, standing only 3 feet tall and weighing only 40 pounds, but he was healthy and seemed to be thriving. His family says he loved water, he enjoyed playing in his kiddie pool in his fenced-in backyard, he liked the beach, and he even liked when it rained. Like many kids his age, he loved SpongeBob SquarePants and Spider-Man, and even had little Spider-Man decals on his ankle braces. Depending on his mood, he could be quiet or super talkative, and he was just a very loving, affectionate, and gentle little guy. Hassani attended school at James Lech Elementary School. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I think it's James Lech. He loved being read to, and shortly before his disappearance, Hassani had been learning to write his name and his ABCs all by himself. Things seemed to be going well, and Lewis and Jennifer had begun taking steps to adopt Hassani and Aaliyah. They seemed to really love the two children. They wanted to keep them permanently and raise them as their own. Jennifer, Lewis, Aaliyah, and Hassani lived in a home in the 5900 block of Roxy Terrace in Fremont, California. And there would be another addition to the family soon, as Lewis and Jennifer had found out that Jennifer was expecting. Roxy Terrace, where they lived, is a really nice area. I mean, I've never been there, but the homes seem really nice and well taken care of, and people who live in the neighborhood say it's a great place to live. The city of Fremont is in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it is considered one of the best places to live in California, as well as one of the safest in the Bay Area. Jennifer was the manager of a shoe store in Oakland called Shoes of Rockport, spelled S-H-U-Z, and Lewis was taking night classes during the week, and his class overlapped with the time when Jennifer was still at work. So to remedy this situation, because obviously they needed someone to watch the kids, the routine was for Lewis to drop Aaliyah and Hassani off at the shoe store with Jennifer, and Lewis would then go to his class. Hassani and Aaliyah would play together in the back room of the store while Jennifer watched them and worked, and then Jennifer would take them home with her after she closed up the store for the day. Lewis would arrive home a little after 9:30 when his class ended. On Monday, August 9, 2009, the family seemingly went about their normal routine. Jennifer went to work that morning, leaving Lewis with the two children, and around 4:15 p.m. that day, Lewis pulled up to the back of the shoe store. He parked his 2002 black BMW at the back of the store. There was a small parking area by the back door that could accommodate 2 to 4 cars. It was pretty small, but Lewis parked and got Aaliyah out of the car. He was carrying her. He opened the door for Hassani and told him to go wait by the back door. I have no idea why Lewis thought it would be a good idea to leave a 5-year-old alone back there by himself while he walked away. Apparently, this was the normal routine and had always been fine. People know better than to leave kids by themselves, and they continue to do it. I don't know if it's because they simply don't care, or if it's because they think bad things won't happen to them or their children, but yet we see it all the time. Oh, I was only gone for a minute. No, don't leave your kids by themselves, folks. I don't care if it's 10 seconds. Don't leave your small child in a car alone. Don't leave them in the yard to run inside real quick. Don't leave them at the back doors of stores while you run to the front. Keep an eye on your babies. Anyway, Lewis left Hassani alone. He says when he last saw Hassani, the 5-year-old was unbuckling his seatbelt and getting ready to exit the car. Lewis walked about 200 feet around to the front of the store to let Jennifer know they were there and to have her open the back door. After going to the front of the store and notifying Jennifer that they had arrived, Lewis then walked back to the rear of the store where he had left Hassani, and by the time he got back there, Jennifer had come out of the back door, and Lewis heard her say, "Where is Hassani?" 5-year-old Hassani was no longer near the car, standing beside it. He wasn't standing at the back door waiting. He wasn't anywhere in view. He was simply gone. The couple immediately notified police and began looking around the area themselves. Oakland police arrived and began a frantic search. They closed down a 2-block area near College Avenue, where the shoe store was located, and Claremont Avenue. A helicopter was brought in, and 6 search and rescue dogs were used to try to track Hassani. They did not find him. The following morning, police continued to comb the area, and flyers with pictures of Hassani were handed out to the local shopkeepers. Shop workers were questioned as well. Not only were they asked if they had seen Hassani, but they were questioned as to whether or not they had seen anything suspicious or any shady-looking people lurking about. The sniffer dogs they brought in were unable to pick up or track Hassani's scent in the area, so law enforcement did not believe he just walked off on his own. Also, remember me saying that Hassani couldn't move very fast. If he had taken off on foot, he wouldn't have been able to get very far in the amount of time that it took Lewis to walk to the front of the store and Jennifer to come out the back door. I don't think a time that it took him to walk to the front and her to come out the door has ever been mentioned, but I can't imagine it would have been more than a minute or two, maybe even less than that. But with no scent to track, it could mean someone had either picked up Hassani and carried him off, or that Hassani had never even been there that day. The area in which the shoe store was located is a bustling shopping district in Rockridge, Oakland. It is a pretty low-crime area with lots of upscale stores, boutiques. There are very nice residential neighborhoods nearby. There are always lots of people around, shopkeepers, workers, lots of foot traffic. The Bay Area Rapid Transit is only 10 minutes away, so lots of people coming and going, and yet no one reported seeing Hassani that day. No one saw him standing by the BMW, no one saw him walking away, no one remembered seeing him at all. Police did begin to question Lewis's story. They impounded his BMW so they could search it. They took swabs from the back seat, the carpet, and the molding latches. They were looking for any evidence that a crime had taken place inside the vehicle. They also asked for his cell phone, which he did voluntarily hand over. Fremont police searched with sniffer dogs within a 1-mile radius of the couple's home as well for any sign of Hassani. They looked in parks, drainage ditches, abandoned houses, and dumpsters. Law enforcement also alerted landfills in Alameda County to be on the lookout for a body. Both Lewis and Jennifer were questioned by law enforcement for hours. I believe they were questioned for something like 12 hours the day of the disappearance and 17 hours the day after. The couple did cooperate, but I read in an article that Lewis and Jennifer were getting very frustrated because they wanted to be out looking for Hassani and helping to organize searches, but instead, police were keeping them there to be interrogated, and they wanted to cooperate, but they did feel like all the focus was on them. When Lewis was asked if he believed that someone he knew might be behind the disappearance, Lewis told reporters, quote, "As a father, those are thoughts you don't entertain. This has been a nightmare. If I could talk to anyone who may have taken him, I would say, drop him off and go, but don't hurt him. You have done enough," end quote. Lewis believed that his foster son had been kidnapped, but police were making it very well known to everyone that they believed Lewis and possibly Jennifer too were responsible. Lewis was asked to take a polygraph and he agreed to do so, but he failed it. The test showed he was 99% deceptive and showed deception when asked the specific question if he knew where Hassani was. Lewis says the polygraph was fraudulent. He said, quote, "They gave me 5 questions. 3 were controls. The controls were, is my name Lewis Ross? Am I 38 years old? Do I live in Fremont?" Then they asked 2 other questions around the case. They showed me results that I was 99% deceptive. So he told me I didn't even get my name right, unquote. Jennifer was also asked to take a polygraph, but she refused, saying she feared for the well-being of her unborn child due to the stress a polygraph would cause her. I believe she was around 5 months along at this time. In my opinion, I don't get that excuse. We've seen multiple women use that excuse in cases to avoid a polygraph. Megan Boswell, little Evelyn Boswell's mom, used that excuse to not take a polygraph, and that witch wasn't even pregnant. There's no medical evidence that a polygraph can cause harm to an unborn child or the mother. Just say you don't want to take one. I myself honestly don't trust polygraphs because they can deliver false positives, asserting that someone is lying who is actually telling the truth, or vice versa. That's why they are not admissible in court. They aren't reliable. My anxiety is so bad that I have no doubt I would fail one if I was being accused of something, even if I was being completely truthful. Under that much stress, my mind just wouldn't work. I know it. I don't think I would take a polygraph either, if I'm being honest. Aaliyah, Hassani's little sister, was taken from Lewis and Jennifer shortly after Hassani disappeared, and she was put into protective custody. A warrant was obtained to search the couple's home. Police changed Hassani's case from a missing person to a homicide, though would not say what led them to believe that he was no longer alive. And on August 28th, Lewis and Jennifer were both arrested. Lewis was held on suspicion of murder, and Jennifer was held on suspicion of being an accessory to murder. Police believed that Lewis had murdered Hassani inside the home and that Jennifer had helped to cover it up.
Tonight, a bombshell in the case of Hassani Campbell. His foster parents are under arrest on suspicion of murder, nearly 3 weeks after the boy was reported missing. Robert Lyles is standing by in Oakland, where police just gave a briefing on those arrests. Robert?
Well, Ken, more than a week ago, CBS 5 reported that Oakland homicide detectives had taken over the case of Hassani Campbell. Then they stressed that that was not an indication that a murder had occurred. Well, tonight, after 18 days, Oakland police are saying just that. Hassani Campbell has been murdered.
I want to clarify, this is not a missing persons case anymore. This is a homicide investigation, and we are talking to the people responsible.
Oakland police have now arrested and charged foster mom Jennifer Campbell with suspicion of murder. Her fiancé, Lewis Ross, has also been arrested. His charge, murder. But Oakland police refuse to answer any questions about what evidence they've gathered that 5-year-old Hassani Campbell has been killed.
I know that there's no body, so I'm quite surprised as to why they were arrested today.
Attorney John Burris is correct. Oakland police begrudgingly confirmed they have not recovered the body of Hassani Campbell, saying only.
This is an ongoing and very complex investigation.
While investigators remain tight-lipped, we have confirmed Jennifer Campbell was supposed to report to Oakland Police Headquarters this morning for another day of interrogations. Instead, investigators moved in and arrested her at the Union City BART station just before 2 this afternoon. Less than an hour later, Oakland cops descended on the couple's Fremont home, taking Lewis Ross into custody.
I'm not aware of any hard physical evidence that ties either one of them into the missing child.
With Oakland police refusing to answer any questions about evidence of murder, Burris contends investigators have arrested the couple, hoping one will incriminate the other.
It would not surprise me in any way that the police were seeking to divide and conquer.
Now, because the couple was arrested tonight, it's believed they will not face a judge until Tuesday. Now, conceivably, that gives detectives until that time to continue their interrogation of the couple. Now, Oakland police apparently also executed a search warrant on the couple's home. CBS 5's Kit Doe is live outside that Fremont home with the latest details on what was removed. Kit?
Robert, this is where Oakland police officers spent much of the afternoon and evening at the home of Lewis Ross here on Roxy Terrace in Fremont. We got here shortly after the arrest was announced, and I can tell you that a body was not recovered at this property. However, detectives searched the house very thoroughly, and in one bedroom they overturned mattresses and flipped through paperwork to look for evidence and clues. The only thing we saw investigators take from the house were paper bags full of evidence, along with the desktop computer and monitor. Also, Fremont Police Animal Control impounded the family dogs. Fremont police say they're just assisting and that Oakland is the lead agency in this case. From Chopper 5, we can see into the partially wooded backyard. It did not appear as though investigators did any digging.
The FBI did get involved, and they, along with police, searched the home of Lewis and Jennifer. Items were taken from the home during the search, but police have never said what evidence they found, if they found anything. I don't believe anything of significance was found, though, because authorities released Jennifer and Lewis from the Santa Rita jail on September 1st, just 3 days after they had been arrested. The Alameda County District Attorney's Office declined to press any charges against them, citing insufficient evidence. Oakland Police Chief at the time, Howard Jordan, pledged to reinvestigate Hassani's case and bring it once again to prosecutors, but that never happened. The district attorney refused to make any comments whatsoever on the case. Oakland high-profile attorney John Burris took it upon himself to advise the couple. This is him. He is the one you saw speaking in the news clip. Jennifer and Louis did not hire him. I don't believe they retained any attorney. I guess Mr. Burris, he just felt for them and offered to legally consult them because he didn't believe they had anything to do with Hassani's disappearance. And he had gone to battle against the Oakland Police Department before when they had wrongly arrested someone in a different case. But police considered Louis and Jennifer to be the primary suspects. Mr. Burris said police abused their power by arresting Jennifer and Louis without enough factual evidence, and there was no way they would have gotten a conviction because there was zero proof that the couple had harmed Hassani. Mr. Burris also believed that police had arrested Louis and Jennifer, hoping the couple would turn on each other and confess to something or rat out the other one, but that didn't happen. Louis and Jennifer stayed adamant that they had nothing to do with Hassani's disappearance. Thanks to a whole bunch of community members and volunteers, searches for Hassani were still being done. The Lake Elizabeth area in Fremont was thoroughly searched, as well as the Carl Nordvik Community Park, which is just a couple of blocks away from the home where Hassani lived. Joaquin Miller Park in Oakland and Coyote Hills Regional Park were also areas that were searched. Nothing related to Hassani was recovered at any of those locations. Detectives also searched an auto salvage yard in Hayward. Employees of the salvage yard say Louis was there earlier in the day, the same day Hassani disappeared. This was before going to the shoe store to drop the kids off with Jennifer. Employees of the salvage yard say that Hassani waited in the car while Ross searched the yard for car parts, and I don't believe they ever saw Hassani exit the vehicle. Police also searched a levee behind the salvage yard, but again, they found nothing. Now, I have seen several other videos and a lot of news clips where, in my opinion, it was made to seem that Louis Ross and Jennifer Campbell didn't try to keep awareness for Hassani out there at all and that they refused to speak to the media. But I don't think that is true. They regularly spoke to the media and did interviews and were trying to keep Hassani's name out there and kind of set the record straight.
Since the first reports of Hassani's disappearance, Louis Ross and his fiancée have regularly taken to the airwaves, maintaining their innocence.
We were not involved with my son's disappearance. We love him and we miss him, and we're not going to stop looking for him. If you saw my son, you would not necessarily know he had cerebral palsy. He is not an invalid. He does not need these braces to walk. They're basically to shape his feet. So what we're asking is that if you want to help keep our son in the news, don't let him become a picture on a milk carton box 5 years later that you never found. You want to help? That's what you do. All of you, that's what you do. If you have him, let him go. Let him go.
At least 50 times a day, people pull in and out of this driveway. And I don't think it was somebody's intention to take him, but they took him. Whether they reminded him of his child, whether they were a pedophile, whatever the reason, I just want him given back. All we want is our children home. We want Hassani found and Aaliyah back with us. That's all any parent ever wants. I would gladly trade my life now for his. If something's wrong with him, I don't care. I would give it myself for him. I just want him home. I just want him safe. I just want him in his bed in our house with his sister playing and laughing. Our house is empty. I don't even want to be there. There's no children there. There's no laughter there. So all we wanted was him home with us.
Campbell, who is 6 months pregnant with Ross's child, is Hassani's biological aunt and foster mother. She spoke at a vigil in Oakland after she was freed when charges against her were dropped yesterday.
But we had nothing to do with it. He's our little boy. We want him and we want him home. And our main concern is finding him. And we still want people to come out and we still want people to know that he is missing. And there are no leads, nothing. He's yet to be found. Find him.
They did eventually stop talking to the media, but they had been accused and already convicted in the court of public opinion, so they probably felt there was no point because no one was believing them. I feel like the Oakland Police Department had a lot to do with that. I mean, in case you missed it in the news clip, I'll play it again, but Jeff Thomason from the Oakland Police Department straight up told everyone that Hassani was murdered and that his foster parents, Jennifer and Lewis, had done it.
I want to clarify, this is not a missing persons case anymore. This is a homicide investigation. And we are talking to the people responsible.
Now, there were a couple of things, incidences, and reports that may have made police understandably lean toward believing the foster parents were responsible. When investigators looked through Lewis's cell phone, they did find a troubling text message Lewis had sent to Jennifer just 10 days before Hassani disappeared. According to court documents, the text message read, quote, "This is over. I will watch her, but he will be out on the BART, and it's your responsibility to get him. So f*** you," unquote. So the BART Lewis is referring to stands for Bay Area Rapid Transit, which is basically the Bay Area's public transportation system. It is a web of 6 train lines that transports people to different central locations. Each train runs every 15 to 20 minutes from 4 a.m. to midnight. Usually, though I believe the time differs on the weekends. I've actually ridden the BART many years ago when I was in San Francisco visiting family, but the BART transports hundreds of thousands of people daily, and I can't imagine a child, especially a small disabled child, being on the BART by themselves. That is terrifying. Lewis says he sent the text in anger after he and Jennifer had an argument and that it had nothing to do with abandoning Hassani. He said that it was a simple argument that was quickly resolved. I get that people can say terrible, terrible things when they're mad, but you don't say things like that about your kids, especially children you claim to love and care about, and you shouldn't use children as a weapon against your spouse ever. Lewis says what he meant by the message to Jennifer was, "I'm going to meet you at the BART, hand off the children, I'm gone, I'm leaving the house, you can have the house, you can have the car, I don't care, I'm gone."
I was ending the relationship completely. This wasn't about me, I'm getting rid of Hassani. I was ending the relationship. I was frustrated.
Lewis expressed his love for Hassani, insisting that Hassani was not just a foster child paycheck. He said, quote, "I was his father, he was my son," unquote. Another factor that made the foster parents look guilty was that no one aside from them had reportedly seen Hassani since 4 days before he disappeared. The last sighting of him was on a Walmart surveillance video on August 6th, when the family had been out shopping for a car seat. You can see him there walking along with Lewis and Jennifer. This video is the last confirmed sighting of little Hassani. I have seen it reported that latex gloves were found in Lewis's car and that police found this suspicious. Lewis disputes this, saying that there were no latex gloves in his car, but there was a glove-like hand puppet that baby Aaliyah had been playing with, and that is what police found. I obviously don't know exactly what was found in the BMW. The video taken by news media the day Hassani disappeared, it appears, to me anyway, that Lewis is wearing scrubs, like nurse or doctor scrubs. I assume for the night class he was taking since he was on his way there. Maybe that's why latex gloves were in the car. Not sure if it was just a pair of gloves or a box of them because he needed them for the night class. If they were really found in the car, but if they were found in there, why wouldn't he just say, "Hey, those were for my class"? I don't know. Maybe the gloves were in there for nefarious reasons, or maybe there were no gloves and it was just a hand puppet like Lewis said. We don't know because police haven't given specifics. There was a court document stating that on at least one occasion, Lewis had left 5-year-old Hassani and 1-year-old Aaliyah at home alone while he made a trip to the bank. Yikes. Again, you don't leave your children alone for any reason. I have also seen media reports that Lewis had been violent toward Jennifer, but Jennifer denies this, saying that there was no domestic violence in the relationship ever, and I don't think there were any police reports to support the claim. I understand that just because there wasn't a police report and just because Jennifer denies it, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but Jennifer still states it never happened.
He's never hit me. He's never done this. He's never done that. And they kept going with the questioning, and the answer was still the same. And I'm not sure where the domestic violence has come from.
I assume investigators checked into other biological family members or friends of the family, thinking maybe one of them wanted Hassani and took him, even though I could not find anything on that. We know that when a child goes missing, often it is someone the child knows that is responsible. It seems to me like something police would have wanted to look into. It is possible that the Oakland Police Department was so focused on Lewis and Jennifer that they didn't look into anyone else. Despite what the police thought, Hassani's biological mother, Shamika, and their extended family stood behind Jennifer and Lewis. Shamika stated, and I quote, "I'm outraged at the fact that they would arrest my sister and brother-in-law for something they didn't do." One of Hassani's aunts also made a statement saying she was very surprised that they were arrested because they didn't do anything wrong, and that Jennifer and Lewis loved Aaliyah and Hassani like they were their own. Additionally, Jennifer's coworkers said that she was a very attentive and loving caregiver to the children. Now, I know that a lot of people familiar with this case totally believe Lewis is responsible. Many people believe Lewis saw Hassani as an inconvenience, and police have said that Lewis himself had reservations about raising a developmentally disabled child. Police and others believe that Lewis got rid of Hassani, then came up with this whole story about him disappearing during a routine drop-off. They think that when Lewis showed up at the shoe store that day, Hassani was already gone. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think the foster parents had something to do with it? In my opinion, I think police and news media focused solely on the foster parents and didn't look enough into other possibilities. This isn't me defending the foster parents and saying, oh, they're innocent. I obviously don't know. Of course, they have to look at those close to the child first, but you can't just stick with that one idea when there's no evidence. I do think Lewis being responsible is highly possible, but when you focus on only one scenario, you may miss something else that is so important. I kind of feel like police wanted the parents to be guilty and didn't entertain the thought that maybe someone else did grab Hassani in the short span of time it took Lewis to walk to the front of the store. There have been instances where abductions have occurred and no one witnessed it, even in very populated areas. Oakland police even said that at one point. If some stranger did abduct Hassani, they could have grabbed him and taken him off very quickly in a car, or they could have carried him off and hopped on the BART, which was only a 10-minute walk away. If this was a stranger, they were likely watching the news and loving the fact that so much attention was put on accusing the foster parents. If Lewis and Jennifer did do something to harm Hassani and then covered it up, they did it well because there was no evidence found to prove that they did anything. Whatever police did find in the home, if anything, because it's never been released, then it obviously wasn't enough. But there is also no evidence of an abduction. The lack of cameras in the area meant there was no footage of what happened behind the shoe store, and no one present in the area witnessed someone grabbing the little boy and fleeing with him. No one heard a child crying out in distress or saw a kid struggling against a stranger. Additionally, no one in the area can confirm whether or not Hassani was actually in Lewis's BMW when it pulled into the parking area that day. There's no evidence to support really anything.
Now, police have been searching around the couple's home in Fremont, regional parks in the area, because to date, they have found no evidence to corroborate that the child was actually in the Rockwood neighborhood where he supposedly went missing on the day he went missing. There's been no videotape shown up in any of the stores around the area. Search dogs who scoured the area did not come up with any scent, and no witnesses have come forward. But John, also there's a twist here, because they're treating it as a missing persons, but they're not sure any of the story is checking out. On the other hand, they don't have any evidence at this point that there's a crime. So we have two groups of police officers sort of involved in this, and quite a number of investigators over at the OPD working around the clock to try to solve this.
And very, very few calls on the tip line that they've set up, at least according to the police, fewer calls than what they would normally expect. Does that kind of give them an indication that maybe something bad has happened?
Well, the bottom line in it is that they don't have any witnesses to what happened. Usually in a case like this was a very crowded neighborhood where the child supposedly went missing. So the police are saying somewhere between video, the dogs, or witnesses, somebody should have seen something. They have not gotten a lot of calls, or any, and every call they've gotten has been a dead end so far.
Shortly after Lewis and Jennifer's baby was born, the couple broke up and parted ways. Both moved away from the Bay Area. I believe they both actually left the state of California altogether. Neither one came forward after the breakup to accuse the other of anything concerning Hassani. They still, to this day, claim that they had no involvement. There have been no new leads for a very long time in Hassani's case, and police aren't searching for him anymore because they say they don't know where to look. At the time of his disappearance, Hassani was 3 feet tall and around 40 pounds. He has black hair and brown eyes and was last known to be wearing a gray sweatshirt and sweatpants. I wondered why Hassani would be wearing a sweatshirt and sweatpants in August. August here in Indiana is still very hot. It's shorts and t-shirt weather. But in Oakland, California, the average daily high temperatures in August are around 72 to 74 degrees for the high, and it is overcast or mostly cloudy about 9% of the time. So I guess that makes sense that he was dressed that way. There are conflicting reports on whether or not Hassani was wearing his ankle braces at the time he vanished, so I'm honestly not sure whether he was or not. The news was at first reporting that he had these big metal leg braces on his legs when he disappeared, which was very inaccurate. They were white ankle braces, not leg braces, and if someone saw Hassani walking around that day, they wouldn't have even seen his ankle braces because he wore them under his clothes. If Hassani is still alive out there, he is now 18 years old, almost 19 at the time I'm recording this because his birthday is coming up in September. There was a Find Hassani website for some time ran by the family, but when I checked, the link no longer worked, unfortunately. When researching for this video, a lot of the links didn't work anymore, which really sucks. I like to get as much information as possible, and it was very difficult for this one. This case isn't really well known. It isn't really talked about much anymore, which is sad. We don't like for these missing little ones to be forgotten, so please share Hassani's flyer, share this video if you think it will help, hit that like button so the video gets bumped up in the YouTube algorithm and more people will see Hassani's story. If Hassani is still alive and has been raised by someone else, maybe he or someone else that knows him or what happened that day in 2009 will see this video or a flyer shared by one of you, and this case can be resolved. Anyone with information on Hassani's disappearance should call the Oakland Police Special Victims Unit at 510-238-3641. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. If it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't even be here on YouTube anymore. I would have given up long ago, but you all are just so amazing. You all are so supportive, and it's very much appreciated. If you have a case suggestion for me, you can email me at caseyhudsonyt@gmail.com. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss when I upload new content. And if you don't want to subscribe, that's okay too. Just know that I appreciate you being here for this video. I would highly suggest checking out my entire missing playlist, as each case I cover is super important and deserves more exposure. Thanks again for being here. Don't forget to share Hassani's flyer. That's super important. It is linked down in the description box. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.